Hello Talk English Pod.
Welcome to Hello Talk English Pod.
Hi guys, welcome to today's lesson. I'm Yumi.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
So in today's lesson, Luke and his friend Amber discuss how to respond to tell me about yourself in a job interview.
Right, this is definitely one of the most awkward questions you can come across.
I agree with that. Let's listen to the dialogue.
Now that you know what to wear to your interview, are you prepared to be grilled with questions?
Actually, I've been reflecting on potential questions the interviewer may ask and how I will answer them.
What questions do you think they will ask you?
Well, I know at the beginning of every interview they always ask, "Tell me about yourself." I'm not quite sure how to answer this question.
Yes. I always dread answering this awkward question, too.
It's such an open-ended question. How much of my life story do they want me to share?
I don't think they want you to mention any details about your personal life.
So I should just talk about my work experience related to the job I'm applying for?
Yes. You don't want to give a vague response like, I have some work experience in marketing.
But then I also don't want to go into too much detail describing all my responsibilities from previous jobs.
Just focus on describing your core strengths and highlighting the pivotal points of your related work experience.
Okay, I can do that. It seems that my response to this initial question will determine the outcome of the rest of the interview.
So all the more reason to confidently answer this question with your prepared response.
So in the beginning of the dialogue, Amber says, now that you know what to wear to your interview, are you prepared to be grilled with questions?
Oh, I love a good grill. Is that what they're talking about?
I think it's a different kind of grill, but who doesn't love a good grill?
Okay, so that's a good point. But are these related in any way, you think?
Well, what Amber is saying here is, are you ready to be asked a lot of questions? When you think about a grill, for example, meat being pressed down against the heat, this might be a kind of a heated situation. You might getting asked a lot of questions might make you a little nervous.
And uncomfortable.
For example, another situation where you can get grilled is if you were going to meet your boyfriend or girlfriend's parents for the first time. Their parents might grill you and ask you a lot of questions about yourself and your background.
Right. And this is definitely not a very comfortable situation for a lot of people. It makes people a little nervous.
Definitely made me nervous in the past. So Luke goes on to say, actually, I've been reflecting on potential questions the interviewer may ask and how I will answer them. So when he says reflecting here, it basically means think about, but a little bit more deeply.
Right, we wouldn't use it in an everyday think about thing, like I'm reflecting on what to have for lunch. We would use it more on something like the old man was reflecting on his life.
Right, maybe you would reflect on things that are a little bit bigger, more meaningful, or more important in life.
Right, and then he goes on to say potential questions. So here, because he says reflecting on potential questions, we can see that these potential questions are probably pretty important to him.
Right. And the word potential basically means possible. What are the possible questions the interviewer might ask?
They're possible, but they haven't happened yet.
Later on, Amber says, yes, I always dread answering this awkward question too. So the word dread, what does that mean, Ryan?
Well, dread, it just means something you're afraid of, something that you fear. What's something that you dread?
I dread speaking in front of people.
Yeah, that's a common fear. I've heard that's the number one fear for a lot of people.
I think so. And she says, answering this awkward question. So, awkward. She's just saying it's uncomfortable here.
Okay, and then Luke goes on to say it's such an open-ended question. So here he's talking about, tell me about yourself. So an open-ended question is a question that can have any answer versus a yes or no question. So for example, a yes or no question could be, for example, Yumi, do you like chicken?
Yes.
See, that's a yes or no question. But an open-ended question could be something like, Yumi, what kind of food do you like?
Where do I begin? It's an open-ended question because there are so many answers to that. In an interview, an open-ended question might be something like, what are your greatest strengths? There might not just be one or two. It could be open-ended. You might have many strengths.
I hope you do.
I hope I do too. Moving on, Amber says later, yes, you don't want to give a vague response like, I have some work experience in marketing. So what is she talking about when she uses the word vague here?
Vague is the opposite of clear. Vague just means not clear. So, for example, let's look at the sentence she says. I have some work experience in marketing. So the sentence doesn't say exactly what experience she has. It just says some work experience. Work experience can be anything.
Right. And usually in interviews, you want to be specific, or the interviewer might want to know specifically what kind of experience you have. What kind of projects did you work on? How did you manage those projects, and what was your level of involvement?
So then moving on, Luke says, I don't want to go into too much detail describing all responsibilities from his previous jobs. And Amber says, just focus on describing your core strengths and highlighting the pivotal points of your related work experience. So highlighting. So what does she mean by this, Yumi?
Well, she wants to emphasize something, right? When you want to highlight something, it's to emphasize and to talk more about something in particular. Here, Amber is talking about his core strengths. What about the word pivotal? What does she mean by that?
Pivotal can mean one of two things. One, it could be very important, or it could be a turning point. For example, a pivotal moment of his work experience could be when he got a promotion.
Exactly. So he would want to highlight some of his core strengths and pivotal points in his related work experience, which could be getting a promotion or managing some big projects. Later on, Luke says, okay, I can do that. It seems that my response to this initial question will determine the outcome of the rest of the interview. So let's talk about the word initial first. Basically, this initial question is the first question, one of the first questions that he's been asked.
Right. The initial question here is, tell me about yourself. But many times when people first meet, the initial question is, how do you do? Or how are you?
So yeah, that initial question, tell me about yourself, his answer might kind of set the tone for the rest of the interview. And so he uses the word determine the outcome. Determine here basically means decide. Isn't that right, Ryan?
Right. That's exactly right. So determine the outcome basically means decide the result. So he doesn't want this first question to decide the result of the entire interview. Have you ever been nervous that this could happen to you? You get asked this one question, and then the rest of the interview, you're nervous the whole time, and you can't answer any other question? Have you ever worried about that, Yumi?
Definitely. And this goes to show first impressions matter. So afterwards, Amber says, so all the more reason to confidently answer this question with your prepared response.
So all the more is just emphasizing that he needs to confidently answer. So we need to look at the phrase and the whole context here. So first, Luke says he doesn't want his first question to decide the result of the whole interview. So Amber says this is a very important reason why you should definitely and confidently answer this question with your prepared response.
Right. She's saying it's important to be confident. It's important to be prepared. Let's have a listen to the dialogue again.
Now that you know what to wear to your interview, are you prepared to be grilled with questions?
Actually, I've been reflecting on potential questions the interviewer may ask and how I will answer them.
What questions do you think they will ask you?
Well, I know at the beginning of every interview they always ask, "Tell me about yourself." I'm not quite sure how to answer this question.
Ah, yes. I always dread answering this awkward question, too.
It's such an open-ended question. How much of my life story do they want me to share?
I don't think they want you to mention any details about your personal life.
So I should just talk about my work experience related to the job I'm applying for?
Yes. You don't want to give a vague response like, I have some work experience in marketing.
But then I also don't want to go into too much detail describing all my responsibilities from previous jobs.
Just focus on describing your core strengths and highlighting the pivotal points of your related work experience.
Okay, I can do that. It seems that my response to this initial question will determine the outcome of the rest of the interview.
So, all the more reason to confidently answer this question with your prepared response.
So, interviewing in different cultures and countries can be a very different experience. Can you think of any examples where maybe in the US, questions they might ask would differ than other countries?
Yeah, some common questions in the U.S. would be something like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Tell me about your work experience. Tell me about a time that you've taken leadership of something.
That's true. I think I've heard all those.
So let's talk about, I think this is an interesting question to talk about, and it's also very awkward, so maybe we can help everybody out by talking about this question ourselves. So, Yumi, how would you answer, tell me about yourself?
That's a tough one. You want to make sure that you don't give too much information and go on too much detail, but at the same time, say enough to give the person a sense of who you are. In an interview, I might say a little bit about where I'm from, my work experience, and why I'm interested in this position and company.
Would you talk about any of your hobbies or anything like that?
I touch upon those maybe just to make it a little more personal.
Right, I think that's a good idea because if a company is hiring someone, they also want to make sure that the person fits in the company culture.
Definitely. Well, that's about it for today, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.